In a world of increasing skepticism, where faith seems increasingly challenged by reason, we might wonder how the great saints of our tradition would respond to the modern crisis of belief. Among these giants of faith, few stand as tall or as enigmatic as Padre Pio, the humble Capuchin friar whose life became a living testament to the mysteries of God's grace. Imagine for a moment that Padre Pio walks among us now, his stigmatized hands hidden beneath woolen gloves, his penetrating gaze meeting the questioning eyes of our time. How might this man, who bore the wounds of Christ in his flesh for 50 years, address those who find themselves unable to believe or hesitant to embrace the transcendent? Padre Pio was never known for philosophical debates or sophisticated theological arguments. His was a lived faith, raw and immediate. If faced with the sincere agnostic, perhaps he would begin not with words but with silence. He understood that faith often germinates in the quiet soil of contemplation rather than the noisy marketplace of ideas. When he finally spoke, his words might surprise us with their gentleness. "My child," he might say, "your questions are not signs of weakness but of strength. The honest seeker who admits to doubt stands closer to truth than the one who claims certainty without reflection." For Padre Pio knew that faith is not the absence of doubt but the courage to persist in the face of it. To the intellectual who demands evidence, Padre Pio might respond with his characteristic directness. "I cannot give you proof that will satisfy your mind alone, for God is not a theorem to be solved but a person to be encountered." The saint understood that the deepest truths of existence cannot be captured in syllogisms or laboratory experiments. They must be lived, experienced, and suffered. When confronted with the problem of suffering, that eternal stumbling block for so many seeking souls, Padre Pio would not offer facile explanations or dismissive platitudes. Having intimately known physical pain and spiritual darkness, he might simply roll up his sleeve to reveal the wounds that united him to Christ's passion. "I do not have an answer for why suffering exists," he might confess, "but I know that God enters into it with us. I have felt his presence most profoundly not in moments of comfort, but in hours of agony." For those who find the Church's moral teachings restrictive or outdated, Padre Pio's response would likely be both challenging and compassionate. "The moral law is not a prison to confine you," he might explain, "but a map to guide you through treacherous terrain. I have heard thousands of confessions, and never once have I encountered a soul who found true happiness by ignoring the compass of conscience." Yet he would say this not with condemnation, but with the tender concern of a father who has seen the wounds that result from wandering lost. To the scientist who sees only material causes and effects, Padre Pio might share stories of the inexplicable healings and conversions that surrounded his ministry. Not to prove a point, but to gently suggest that reality might be broader and deeper than our instruments can measure. "Science is a noble pursuit," he might affirm, "but it can only tell us how the universe works, not why it exists or what gives it meaning." When speaking with those wounded by religious hypocrisy or institutional failures, Padre Pio would likely offer no defense but rather a heartfelt apology. "The greatest argument against Christianity," he might acknowledge, "is often Christians themselves. I do not ask you to follow the Church because of its members' perfection, but because of Christ's. Look to him, not to us who so imperfectly represent him." For the person who simply cannot believe that God would care about individual human lives, Padre Pio might speak of his own experiences in the confessional, where he often revealed intimate details of penitents' lives that he could not naturally have known. "God knows you by name," he would insist. "He counts the hairs on your head and the tears you have shed. I have glimpsed this divine attention only momentarily, and it has left me overwhelmed. How much more does the Father himself see and love each soul?" To those who reject faith as a psychological crutch for the weak, Padre Pio would perhaps respond with a wry smile. "If faith is a crutch," he might reply, "then I suggest we are all limping. The atheist leans on the belief that meaning can be self-generated. The agnostic relies on the hope that uncertainty itself can provide stable ground. We all place our weight somewhere. The question is not whether we need support, but which support will bear our weight when life's storms come." Padre Pio understood that intellectual objections to faith often mask deeper emotional or spiritual wounds. To the person who rejects God because of personal trauma, his approach would be not argumentation but presence. He might simply sit and listen, allowing the wounded soul to empty their reservoir of pain. Only then might he gently suggest, "Your anger toward God is itself a form of prayer. It is a conversation, not a rejection. Keep speaking to him in your anger, at least you are speaking truth." For the spiritual seeker attracted to Eastern mysticism or New Age practices, Padre Pio would likely recognize the genuine hunger for transcendence. "You search for spiritual experience," he might observe, "but experience without truth is like a meal without nourishment. It may satisfy for a moment but leaves you hungry again. Christ offers not just an experience but a relationship, not just momentary peace but eternal communion." To the person who believes in some undefined higher power but rejects organized religion, Padre Pio might speak of his own struggles with church authority throughout his life. "The church is both divine and human," he might explain. "Its humanity will always disappoint you. Its divinity will always call you higher. I remained within its embrace not because it was perfect, but because Christ promised to remain with it until the end of time." Perhaps most importantly, to those who find Catholic practices and devotions strange or superstitious, Padre Pio would offer not defensive apologetics but an invitation to experience. "Come and see," he might say, echoing Christ's words to the curious disciples. "Kneel before the Blessed Sacrament for 1 hour, make one good confession, pray one rosary with your whole heart, then judge whether these things are empty rituals or channels of divine life." Padre Pio recognized that modern skepticism often springs from a genuine place, a desire for authenticity in a world of false promises and hollow claims. "Your doubt is not your enemy," he might assure the questioning soul. "It is your companion on the journey toward truth, but do not let doubt have the final word. Let it prompt you to seek, to knock, to ask. For the one who seeks will find, though perhaps not what they expected." If Padre Pio were here today, facing the questions and doubts of our time, his most powerful response would not be his words but his life itself. The stigmata that marked his body for 50 years, the countless hours spent in the confessional healing wounded souls, the bilocation accounts that defied natural explanation, the profound humility that withstood both persecution and adulation, these would speak louder than any argument he could formulate. To the honest seeker, Padre Pio might ultimately say what he often told spiritual children who came to him with their struggles: "Pray, hope, and don't worry." Not as a dismissal of legitimate questions, but as an acknowledgement that some truths can only be grasped by living them. Faith is not merely intellectual assent, but a journey of trust, taken one step at a time. In our age of distraction and superficiality, Padre Pio's witness reminds us that the deepest questions deserve not quick answers but patient exploration. He would listen to the agnostic and atheist not as opponents to be defeated, but as fellow travelers seeking truth, beauty, and goodness, even if they call these by different names or search for them along different paths. If this humble friar with the pierced hands were to speak to our troubled times, perhaps his message would be disarmingly simple. God's existence is not primarily a proposition to be proved, but a presence to be encountered. And that encounter happens not through abstract reasoning alone, but through lives transformed by love. For in the end, as Padre Pio knew well, the most compelling argument for faith is not words but witness, not explanations of divine love, but its embodiment in human lives given over completely to its service. In his wounds, his sacrifices, his mysterious gifts, and his boundless compassion, Padre Pio offered something more convincing than any syllogism. He offered himself as a living testament to the God who transforms those who surrender to him. And to the sincere seeker who still stands uncertain, Padre Pio might offer one final invitation, spoken with the tender urgency of one who sees what others cannot yet perceive. You need not have all the answers to begin the journey. You need only take the first step with an open heart, for faith is not the destination but the path itself, a path walked in both darkness and light, in certainty and doubt, but never walked alone. In this way, Padre Pio would respond to the questions and doubts of our time not by dismissing them or overwhelming them with arguments, but by acknowledging their validity while gently pointing beyond them to the mystery that gave his own life such extraordinary meaning and power. And in doing so, He might help even the most skeptical heart recognize that some truths can only be known through love.